KTN News. Get the whole story.
Hello, good morning, and many thanks indeed for joining us on Morning Prime. Today is Thursday, the 14th of April 2022. A big day for UDA. They are holding primaries, and of course we'll be on the ground to give you a full feel of what is happening on the ground as far as these nominations are concerned. Our reporters are deployed everywhere, that in every nook and cranny of this country where the ODM primaries will be, and we look forward to just be giving you an extensive coverage of that as well today. Even amidst the protests that we know is happening within the parties, some of them are claiming yes, there are direct tickets which are being given. So this is a big day for UDA, a litmus test as that, to see whether the party will hold together as far as the primaries are concerned, which we can see some parties as well, they're really coming unglued as far as the primaries are concerned. But today also the biggest question is on the fuel crisis. And we're given to understand that almost everyone is looking forward to what EPRA will do today. There's some rumors on the ground that the fuel prices may be hiked by almost 40 shillings today, but we're yet to see how that will pan out. All that is still speculation, and we eagerly await to see the pronouncement from EPRA today. But it brings the question of the prolonged fuel crisis, which has exposed gaps in the country's supply chain that needs to be addressed urgently. The blame game between marketers and the government aside, it's very clear that the country deserves a strong public strategic petroleum reserve backed by an efficient distribution system to cushion consumers from inconveniences experienced over the past 2 or so weeks. The state must urgently go back to the drawing board and review the role of the National Oil Corporation of Kenya, NOC, as a long-term solution to this madness. The formation of NOC was triggered by the oil crisis of the 1970s and the consequent supply disruptions and historic price increases. Those made petroleum products account for a third of the import bill, making the commodity the single largest item responsible for the drain of the country's foreign exchange earnings. Technically, NOC became a special instrument for the government to have greater control of the petroleum sector, which is key to the country's economic performance. The state will turn to it to stabilize supply and prices, and primarily to reduce the impact of disruptions in petroleum product supply. Regrettably, decades of mismanagement, fraud and underfunding have reduced NOC to a shell. It cannot discharge its mandate, leaving the industry and consumers at the mercy of private players with selfish interest and intentions. Yet, with a properly functional state-run strategic reserve, consumers will have been spared the inconveniences. The state must pick lessons from this crisis and regenerate NOC as a dependable fallback plan whenever there are disruptions in the market. Although Kenya is a liberal economy, there must be safety nets to tackle rogue market players. Revival of NOC is in the interest of the public, and the state must do all within its means to restore this critical agency. The state should also continue expanding the storage capacity. That could be beneficial in that the country will have sufficient stocks at all times, and also cushion itself from the shocks of volatile global prices of an essential commodity. So we see there are good measures coming from government. We understand also that the director or the CEO of Ruby's has been deported. This is just one amongst many critical measures and interventions that we want to see from the government today. And still on that beat, I want also to just, I told you about the UDA, will be also focusing on that as well. And the United Democratic Alliance, which is sponsoring Deputy President William Ruto's presidential bid, holds its primaries today, just to remind you, in what will test its ability to hold together in the face of stiff competition for for its tickets. According to the party's National Elections Board Chairman, Anthony Mwaura, the party has made adequate preparations to ensure the nominations are conducted successfully. His assurance, however, comes amid protest by some hopefuls that the exercise is skewed in favor of their rivals. Aspirants for most of the seats in the Rift Valley, perceived as one of UDA's strongholds, will be determined through indirect nominations after the party gave out only a few direct tickets. Right. So we continue with the conversation apace. So we'll be looking at that much later in the course of the program. And as I mentioned, we have our reporters down on the ground. Professor Gituro Wanaina is here. I just want to hear from him this morning and to tell us where he has been so far. He's been missing in action for the last 2 shows of 3. And then he'll tell us what he's also has been observing as far as the fuel crisis is concerned. What will be the reaction? I'm expecting Bill Okero to join us. He's a businessman and a former senator. Also, he is the former chair of the Finance Committee in the Senate. We will be joined by Bunyasi Sakura as well, who is a member of parliament for Nambale, also a consummate economist. So let me hear from Professor. Professor, good to see you.
Good to see you, Diba.
It's been a while.
Yes, indeed. It's campaign season, you know.
Surprise, surprise. Yeah. I didn't know that you're running for a seat.
No.
So you've been down on the ground campaigning.
Go for it.
Huh? You're the strategic advisor.
Correct.
So you've been consulted?
Of the 190.
Of the 190.
No, not the big guy. No, the 190.
Okay.
Yes. It's been busy a bit, monitoring evaluation week last week, doing the midterm 3 review.
Okay.
And also the going to the counties in terms of midterm plan 4. So much on the pocket in terms of the work to be done.
This is midterm plan 4 for what?
For this country.
For this country. When you talk midterm, for many, maybe
midterm plan.
Midterm plan.
This
is for the Vision 2030?
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
From 2017 to 2022, we had midterm plan 3.
Yes.
It's coming to an end this year. So there's a review of that plan. And I've been developing that review. Now, as we go now from 2022 to 2027, we need the midterm plan 4.
Okay.
For you to get it going, you have to go to the counties.
Yes.
You have to go to the ministries, departments, and agencies, synthesize people as it were. So that's a responsibility before even you sit down and start drafting, and then even consulting the political parties. So that's what has been taking a bit of time. It's a process which is extremely good. I hope we can follow through by implementation. But really a lot of consultations which happens.
So you know when we were talking about Vision 2030 in early 2000, yeah, it looks like a mirage. Vision 2030.
Absolutely.
When will we get
7
there?
years.
So how many years down the line? 7 years down the line, because this is almost done, so to speak, 7 years down the line. But how are we feeling the impact of Vision 2030, right? Even with this particular crisis that we are in, this should have been part of your vision, and how we can have a strategic oil reserve in this country, the resumption of also National Oil Corporation that we're talking about.
Yes.
Why should we be here? And we are well able to take care of ourselves. Had we also maybe put this in the Vision 2030?
I think the issue of the oil prices, and perhaps we'll talk later, it's a bit a tighter one. I think nobody anticipates. A good proportion of it happening is because of the war. And I take back what I sometimes I say there were not much impact. There's so much indeed. And they also have to be difficult. Even 14 years, the kind of prices we're talking, we saw them 14 years ago.
Yes.
So it have been difficult. But coming back to the vision, it probably I would say a scale out of 10, I'll give it maybe 5 or so. There are things which has happened if you go over the countryside.
Yes.
And you enjoy it even in urban areas. But that issue, and you are raising a very important point, the issue of seeing 10 years, 5 years, 3 years down the road is a very difficult scenario.
Yes.
And I've looked at 120/40 of food production and demand And that is telling us there's a wide difference between the demand and the production. So there are certain areas, perhaps at that level you could. But the point you made earlier on, I think that's what is important. How do we caution ourselves with having a reserve?
Yes.
And that's what is critical.
It's critical.
Very critical.
Fantastic.
If you look countries like Egypt, most Middle East countries, and bread is the most eaten in the world, they have portions, their countries, by subsidizing that. And we have been a subsidy in power, in fuel in this country.
Yes.
But I think we probably need a very strong reserve. The concept of going the Turkana way and that oil was actually really making ourselves reliant on fuel.
Yes.
That hasn't moved very well. I think there are things which need to be done. But by and large, it's a bit difficult, I'm telling you, my brother, to focus that. I think the focus would have happened when Russia threatened to invade Ukraine. Then we should have known two things would be affected: food prices, particularly wheat, and oil.
And oil.
Because we talk in terms of Russia is the third country in the world which produces more oil. Surprise, surprise, US is the first one, followed by Saudi Arabia, and third, Russia.
Yes, US is the first one, but what do?
They just keep it the reserve.
They just keep it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So we get
they
all
will
this
release
oil.
it when the price is good. They will release it.
Yeah.
And they have the best. They call it's called TWI, Texas West Intermediary, is the best. It's a sweet oil. And it's in Texas.
We'll come back. We'll come back to that. And also have we have Banyasi Sakura as well with us. Good morning. Good to see you. I'm very well, thank you. Thank you for joining us. We continue pace. Let's just see what is fresh off the press this morning before you step out of the house, and you just get an inkling of what is being held on the front pages of the dailies today. We begin with the bold paper. This is the Standard, and this is what is on the front page of the Standard this morning. Breaks for fuel price shocker is what is headlining the front page of the Standard this morning. New gold. Motorists will pay up to 100, get this, and 78 shillings per litre. If Treasury withdraws the subsidy it has been paying oil marketing companies, Kenyans traveling for Easter festivities, I should say, will feel the pain when prices are reviewed tonight as Ruby's MD is deported in crackdown over hoarding. The story is on page 4 of the Standard this morning. And you can see here Ruby's Energy Group MD Jean-Christian Bergeron, who was deported last night. We have Gladwell Jesire, the National Assembly Energy Committee Vice Chair, saying, quote unquote, the government has committed in writing to pay oil marketing firms from April 2021 to March 2022. April 2021 to March 2022, 49.16 billion shillings, of which 34.64 billion has been paid, including 8.2 billion shillings paid on Monday, April the 4th. And you can see a related picture as well. This is continuing. Yesterday you saw also how they came out in force. It still continues apace in the country. Motorists and border riders wait with empty jerry cans and fading hopes to buy fuel at a Total petrol station in Kisii Town yesterday. Prices of fuel are expected to go up tonight, so we eagerly wait to see how that will be. A spike of over 40 shillings, that is a huge spike. That will account for 78 shillings at the pump. Also, on top here, you can see protests as UDA holds nominations. D-Day for election hopefuls as Deputy President's party picks nominees even as it dishes out direct tickets to some. You have this story on page 8 and 9 of the Standard this morning. This is how it looks today. An ODM rejects the attorney tax on basic goods is another story that you want to follow. Minority leader tells MP allied to Raila Odinga to reject VAT that the Treasury slapped on critical household commodities. This story on page 6 and 7 of the Standard this morning. Yes, this is the standard for you this morning, and you can see how it came out. Momentarily, we'll be crossing over to Emmanuel to just give us a snippet of what is happening on the ground as well. As I've mentioned, we have the primaries which are ongoing today. This is for the UDA starting today, right? And we'll be crossing over momentarily to him to just give us a feel of what is happening also on the ground, just in preparation, of course, today for the primaries. And as we're trying to put ducks in a row, we'll show you also what we do have on the front page of the Daily Nation. And this is what is on the front page of the Daily Nation today. Ruby's boss deported. That is what is a splash today on the front page of the Daily Nation. There's a fuel crisis. Energy regulator is expected to review prices today. As I've mentioned, it will end the current will it end the current shortages? That is the abiding question. And it says here, on the sub-headline, the government yesterday signed deportation papers for Ruby's Energy Kenya Managing Director Jean-Christian Bergeron, who is accused of economic sabotage. As it fought oil marketers, it blames for setting off a petroleum crisis through holding and high exports despite shortages in their local retail outlets. This as Kenyans' pain at the pumps intensified. This story continues on page 2 and 3 of the Daily Nation today. Who will win it? Who will win it? That is the question. Big fights as Ruto's UDA holds polls. And this story continues on page 4 and 5. And we shall be crossing over momentarily to Emmanuel to just also give us a feel of what is happening on the ground where he is right now. Kalonzo Conrad can't leave Azimio is another story that you want to follow inside the Daily Nation there. According to the government, Wiper leader signed, according to the agreement, I should say, Wiper leader signed, he cannot leave the coalition now. But Mr. Musyoka's allies allege the deal is flawed and that they can still explore other options. Who is fooling whom? That is a critical question. Page 12 and 13 of the Daily Nation carries this. And we have a quote here from Mutula Kilonzo Jr. saying, the options to quit a coalition party are very clear and in no way binding. So there is also an exit route. Is not really bound by that agreement at the end of the day. This is the Daily Nation for you. And we want to cross over to Emmanuel Toll right now to just also give us a feel, as I've mentioned, it's a big day for the UDA party with the primaries on the ground. And we have Emmanuel Toll right now to just give us a feel of what is happening on the ground today. Emmanuel Toll, good morning.
To Dibal, of course, it is a big day for the UDA party and the UDA fraternity, and we are in County 029, Nandi County, the source of champions. This county is known for the athletes that have represented Kenya in international fora and have given a good name for Kenya. But today, it's not about the running on the track. It is the running for the seats that are up for grabs for the UDA party. And of course, I'm at Chesumei constituency at one of the polling stations called Cheptarit polling station, which is one of the schools which have been converted into a polling center. And some of the members here, you can see some faces here. Some of them are still waiting to have the polling station start. We're told that the ballot material have not yet arrived, and they're waiting patiently to hear and get some details from the returning officers and some of the polling clerks and presiding officers who are supposed to man this polling station. But just to bring you up to speed, this constituency has attracted several members of parliament who are or aspirants who are vying for the UDA ticket, and the current incumbent, that is Wilson Kogo, who is actually he was one of my principals back in high school, is also trying to make sure that he gets that ticket for another term. But some of these members here are waiting to have the polls open, and it just shows how much they are ready for this process to kick off. And let me just engage some of them and get a feel of what they have to say. There was one here, karibia sana, karibia hapa. Naomba uanze na jina lako na utuambie mlifika hapa saa ngapi, mbona mjaanza shughuli ya kupiga kura?
Kwa majina naitwa Joseph Bitok, ni mkaji wa area. Tumefika mapema muda wa saa 10. Tuliambiwa by saa 11:30 masanduku na makaratasi ya kupigia kura itakuwa imefika. Mpaka sasa hivi Wawakilishi kutoka chama cha UDA wajafika, wala wanaosimamia uchaguzi hapa. Tumefika hapa tu kama wapiga kura na wakilishi wanaopigania viti mbalimbali kama wabunge kama makafana, na wale pia wanapigania kiti cha women rep na MCS. Tumeshafika hapa, hila maboxes na makaratasi ya kupigia kura bado hasijafika. Okay. Tunahimiza tu ofisi ya UDA waharakishe hili, kwa sababu members ambayo wako hapa kwa sasa hivi ni zaidi ya 100 na kitu ambayo wanatarajia kufika kura. Tunawahimiza UDA ili waharakishe hizo mabox wapika hapa mara moja.
Wacha niongee na mwingine hapa, karibia hivi, anza na jina lako, utuambie leo unatarajia kupiga kura, umejiandaa kivipi?
Kwa majina mimi naitwa Kiptatu Risen. Tumejiandaa, lakini makosa moja watu wa kulete ballot box wajafika. Na hapa ujue sisi ni watu wa hustlers. Na tunataka kwenda kwa leo ni siku ya Thursday ambapo ni siku ya soko. Tulitarajia tupige mapema na asubuhi alafu tuende tuhustle maisha yetu. Sasa tunaomba ofisi ya UDA waharakishe hii watu wafike kwa polling station ya Chapter. Okay. Kwa vile hii ni wakati wa hustlers na tunahitaji tuende kwa masoko tupige kura hii, tumalize tuchague wabunge, masenators, magovernors na MCA. Sasa tunaomba ofisi ya UDA wapike simu, kwa vile jana tuliambia hii ballot boxes na vitu vyote ya chama imefika Kapsabet na imefika saa 12. Tulifika hapa mapema saa 10:30 tukingojea. Sasa tunatarajia kabisa tuchague viongozi, hatuchagui. Asante.
Kwanza kabla nikuachilie, wewe unataka kiongozi mwenye atakufanyia nini ukimchagua?
Mimi nataka kiongozi yenye atanienda kunifanyia kwanza economy. Maisha ya kuendesha uchumi ya Kenya. Anaenda kuniwakilisha kama mimi nimemchagua yeye, awe macho yangu, kama ni mbunge awe macho yangu katika bunge. Anifanyie budget mzuri, achunge uchumi iwe mzuri.
Asante sana. Haya, wacha let me speak to one more here. Karibia tu hivi, there are a couple of them but I'll only speak to two. Anza kwa jina yako na wewe unataka kiongozi wa aina gani na unatarajia leo shughuli ikuwe namna gani?
Kwa majina yangu naitwa Richard Utieno Auma. Hapa niko ni Chapter polling station. Nimekaa hapa miaka zaidi ya 16 tangu niingie hapa. Kura yote ambayo imepigwa hapa nimekuwa nikipiga. Leo hii nimekuja kwa maana tumekuwa na wanasiasa hao wetu, viongozi wetu ambao wanatuwakilisha kila wakati, na leo tumekuja kuamua ni nani tutampatia tena mwanzo mpya tena ya kutuongoza hapa Chapter. Kwanza hii Lelmoko Ongechek ward. Wamekuwa wakitembea wakituongeleza kwa njia mbalimbali. So leo hii kama ni mama ameshika mimba ni mwezi 9, na hii mwezi 9 mwanzo tulianza, na hii mimba leo tunataka izaliwe viongozi ambao watakuja kutusaidia kututengenezea environment ya uchumi kuwe mzuri. Watutengenezee tu, hatutaki watuletee pesa kila wakati katika milango yetu, lakini environment ya kazi ikuwe mzuri ili Kenya ipate kuendelea mbele. Asante sana mheshimiwa.
Thank you. All right, from that point I'm now mheshimiwa from here in Nandi County, and it is a awaited breath. Actually these people waiting a lot to have that process kick off. We have been here since around 5:30 a.m. and the polls are yet to open, and I'm just going to show you some of the activities here. When they come in, they're supposed to use some of the classrooms over there to conduct that process, and once a member comes in, there should be some polling booths somewhere there and some ballot papers where these people are going to be handed with some material to also participate in that process. And of course, this county has several big shots who are trying to also make up or make a big name for themselves, and including the governor for this county, Stephen Arap Sang. who is also trying to get his second stab at the governor's office. Remember, he has been there for 5 years. He was the first senator, and he's one of the youngest governors we have in the country, as well as one who is also trying to get a chance to continue with that process and the legacy that he puts. And in the next few minutes, we'll be speaking to the senator of this county, that is Cherargei, who's promised to give us a statement. Remember, his seat has also attracted several other contestants, including one of the aspirants. And in this county, actually, we have two brothers who are vying for different seats. We have Alan Kosgei, who's eyeing for the governor position, and we also have another Kosgei who is vying for the Senate position, and that is Alex Kosgei. And these are the sons of the former Minister for Industrialization, Henry Kosgei. And of course, it's going to be a very big debate and a lot of contest today, as the 6 constituencies here and 30 wards also go to the polls to elect or give tickets to some of the members who are seeking different positions. And remember, getting a ticket in this stronghold, the DP Ruto's stronghold, is akin to having a direct ticket to Parliament, because it is a bedrock of the UDA party. And so we'll be monitoring this. We'll be giving you some more updates in our subsequent bulletins in terms of what will be transpiring in this county. Over to you, Dibal.
Many thanks indeed, Emmanuel Toh there, reporting from Nandi County. Thank you for that comprehensive coverage. Right now, we want to cross over to also Jeff Kirui, who is in Kericho right now, looking and covering the Great Rift Valley, as it were. Also, Bomet, he will be also moving there. But right now, he's in Kericho. Let's cross over to Jeff Kirui. Just give us a feel of what is happening on the ground right now. Good morning, Jeff.
Well, very good morning, Dibal. Indeed, this, as they call it, is the Green City, Kericho County, county number 035. And currently we are at Kericho Primary. That is one of the polling stations in this county. And when we made our way here, there were four gentlemen who were at the gate. The gate was yet to be opened, contrary to what the National Election Board of the United Democratic Alliance Party had indicated in a press conference yesterday, that by 6 in the morning, all the polling stations will be opened. By now, at Kericho Primary School in Kericho County, this is one of the polling stations at the town in Kericho Town. There are no ballot papers which have been brought to the polling stations, and there are only 3 gentlemen and 1 lady who have actually made their way here, hoping to cast their vote for their respective candidate to fly the ticket of UDA party in the August 9 polls. I will be speaking to 2 or 3 of them to get their view, of course, before now breaking down what this contest means for this county. Welcome to KTN News. Maybe you can start by telling us your name and what time you came here and your expectations for the day.
Kwa majina naitwa Robert Ngeno from Kericho. Niko Kericho Primary hapa, nilifika hapa saa 11:40. Hiyo wakati tulipofika tumekuwa tukisimama kwa mlango na tujaona chochote imefanyika. So kwa watu wengi kama sisi kuna kwenda kufanya kazi, lakini kama saa umefika, unaona wengine wanaenda ku give up a level. Maybe itampea time ya kufika kuja kupiga kura tena, kwa sababu hiyo hope yake hana hope tena kwa sababu ya masaa.
Wakati mlifika hapa, sijui mliambiwa ni sababu gani haswa, mbona vituo ama kituo cha kupiga kura kijafunguliwa?
Vile tulifika hapa, tukasimama kwa mlango main gate ya Kericho Primary, tukaambia wao wakupanga hii mikakati ya kupiga kura hawajafika. Sasa tukaamua tukangoja hadi saa hii hawajafika.
Naomba kuzungumza pia na ndugu yangu hapa. Unafahamika kama nani?
Naitwa Hamilton Ngode. Yeah.
Wewe ulifika mwendo wa saa ngapi katika kituo hiki cha kupiga kura?
Nilifika saa 11:50. Yeah. So matarajio yangu ya kwamba watu watakuja, watu watapiga kura na tutachagua wale viongozi wenye tunahitaji. Above all, we are praying for peace. We just want peace, na tuchague wale viongozi wenye tutajua watatufanyia kazi. Yeah.
Na labda tu ni kuhusiana na masuala madhubuti katika kaunti hii ya Kericho Kunradhi. Kaunti ni masuala yapi unaona kiongozi ambaye atachaguliwa ama mwanasiasa ambaye atachaguliwa anafaa kuipea kipaumbele?
Kwanza kabisa, yule kiongozi mwenye atachaguliwa Kericho, tunataka tutengenezee Kericho ikuwe as a city. And then next, tunataka yule kiongozi mwenye anaweza unite kila mtu mwenye ako kwa county, kwa sababu wale wenye wako kwa county ni wa Kenya.
So we just need a kiongozi yule mwenye ata unite everybody in the county, na yule mwenye atatutengenezea infrastructures, kila kitu ikuwe sawa kwa county. Yeah.
Na pia naomba kuzungumza na jamaa, naona amefika hapo, unafahamika kama nani?
Na kwa majina naitwa Kenneth To, na niliingia hapa kitu saa 11 na dakika 45, nilikuwa kwa mlango pale. Tukaambiwa kuulizia, tukaambiwa hakuna chochote kimeonekana hapa ndani. Kwa hivyo tumekuwa kwa baridi hapa nje mpaka sasa, hakuna chochote imeendelea.
Wewe unaona kuchelewa kuanzishwa kwa shughuli ya kupiga kura ya mchujo kunaweza athiri idadi ya watu watakaojitokeza kupiga kura?
Idadi manake kuna wengi walifika, kuna asubuhi kuna wenye walikuwa wamefika kwa mlango pale wakisema walikuwa tayari kupiga, lakini sasa ilibidi wamerudi kwanza kwa shughuli zingine za kazi zao.
Na wewe kama mkaaji ama mkazi wa kaunti ya Kericho, ni matarajio gani uko nayo kwa kiongozi ambaye atachukuliwa? Tunajua kwamba kuna nafasi mbalimbali, kutoka nafasi ya ugavana, kuna nafasi ya mwakilishi wa kike, kuna nafasi ya mbunge na pia mwakilishi wa wodi. Matarajio yako ni yapi kuhusiana na kiongozi ambaye mnataka achaguliwe katika eneo hili?
Tungependa kupata kiongozi ambapo atashughulikia haswa maslahi yetu kama wananchi. Aweze kuona kwamba tumeweza kupata, kama ni mambo na pasari kama na nini, tuone tumeshughulikiwa zaidi. Haswa tutapata kiongozi ule mwenye atajali maslahi yetu, ndio itafaa.
Asante sana. Naona ndugu hapa ni kama yeye ni mhudumu wa bodaboda, amejivika vizuri sana. Karibu sana KTN News. Wewe umefika saa ngapi katika kituo hiki cha kupiga kura? Na wewe unatarajia kwamba utapata nafasi ya kupiga kura ili kwenda kwenye shughuli zako?
Mimi nimeingia hapa saa 12 kamili. Matarajio yangu ni kupiga kura, niende shughuli zangu za kazi. Lakini naona bado shughuli inaendelea. Sasa hatujui ni yapi yameendelea. Nimesikia kwingine watu wanaendelea kupiga kura saa hii. Nimetoka sehemu za chai kwa huko. Watu wanaendelea kupiga kura kwa saa hii. Sijui hapa Kericho Primary shida imekuwa wapi. Yeah.
Na hapa wewe ukiangalia hapa sehemu hii hapa, ni mambo yapi ama masala yapi wanafaa kuipea kipaumbele haswa wale ambao watapewa fursa ya kuongoza?
Kitu ya kwanza kabisa, mimi ni mkaaji wa hapa Kericho. Shida ya hapa Kericho, kitu ya kwanza ni maji. Maji hakuna hapa Kericho kabisa. Maji tangu Januari tujaona maji hapa Kericho. Tunaenda mtoni kama watu wa Garissa, kama watu wa Turkana huko, imekuwa shida. Maji ni ikuwe kipaumbele kabisa kwa gavana mwenye anakuja. Yeah.
Naam, asante sana kwa kutupea nafasi kuzungumza nasi. Dibal, that is the feel of residents and some of the voters actually who came here as early as 5 from one of the gentlemen that we had a conversation. They were hoping that by 6 in the morning the polling station would be open, but until now we are yet to see even polling materials being taken to the polling center, the polling station or the polling hall. And we are, of course, will be seeking answers from the coordinators of United Democratic Alliance Party in Kericho County. Of course, this is a county that has attracted a lot of attention considering the kind of contest which is expected in this county. And the focus is on the top seat, that is the governor's position. And despite the fact that there are 4 contestants who are eyeing that UDA ticket to fly the party's flag in the August 9 polls, from our engagements with the residents, it appears like it's a 2-horse race between the former CS, Charles Keter, and a greenhorn in politics, the first timer in this contest, and that is Dr. Eric Mutai. But there are other contestants. One of them is Professor James Sang. There is the current deputy governor of Kericho County, Lily Ngog. But there was another contestant, that is another aspirant, who withdrew from the race, and that is Engineer Fred Kirui. He withdrew from the race and decided to back Dr. Eric Mutai as his running mate. So that is actually going to change the political, or rather the matrix in this race, considering that there are issues about sub-county politics, and every sub-county will be staking a claim on who becomes the governor. Dr. Eric Mutai hails from the neighboring Buret constituency, and Charles Keter, that is the former CS, he voted in 2017 in Belgut constituency, but we are informed that he might have transferred his vote to Kipkelion, that is in Chepsir area, that is his new home turf. So those are some of the issues that are going to play out in this contest. But of course, the position of the senator, the current senator of Kericho County, came unopposed in the United Democratic Alliance nomination exercise, so he will be handed the direct ticket. For the position of woman rep, there will be no much contest compared to what we are witnessing in the governor's seat, as well as the other positions of members of parliament. The 6 constituencies in this area, that is Bureti, there is Soinsi Gawit, there is Kipkelion East, Kipkelion West, and Ainamoi constituency. There are a total of 6 constituencies in this area. But we will be keeping an eye as well in Bomet County, and that is a race that has attracted for the top seat. There are 2 candidates eyeing that ticket of UDA, and that is the current governor, Dr. Hilary Barchok, against the former PS, Engineer Mosonik. Those are the 2 who will be battling it out for the UDA ticket to represent the party at the ballot in the August 9 polls. Whoever emerges the winner will be facing Chama cha Mashinani party leader, the first governor of Bomet County, Isaac Ruto. For the position of the Senate, there is the current governor, that is Andrew Langat, who will be facing off with Hilary Sigei, who is a lawyer, as well as the former Secretary General of Kenya National Union of Teachers, that is Nat Wilson Sosion. Those are some who will be battling it out for the position of senator. So those are the contests that we will be keeping an eye on, of course, to keep you in touch or informed about what transpires in these 2 counties, the neighboring counties, county number 35, that is Kericho County, and county number 36, that is Bomet County, considering that in Kericho County specifically, whoever clinches the ticket is as good as elected. Of course, based on the historical voting trends of this region, the dominant party, whoever clinches the party ticket of the dominant party, ultimately goes on to be elected for the respective position they are eyeing. Dibal.
Indeed, Jeff Kirui there. And we keep our eyes peeled today to see what will be panning out. Thank you for that detailed reporting right from the grounds of Kericho. So we shall be also crossing over at the top of the hour to see also what William Moige has for us in the Embu region as well, to see just what is happening also on the ground much later in the course of the program. Right, we continue apace with our conversation. Remember, today is Thursday, the 14th of April, and of course, we normally speak what is happening in the Sokoni, in the market, just having an economic outlook. And before we crossed over to our reporters on the ground, we're still putting up the purpose for you. Let me just try and wind up that with People Daily, where it is holding this particular splash. Why polls are double-edged sword for Ruto. This is what is on the front page of the People Daily. Why polls are double-edged sword for Ruto. Deputy President's decision to take personal charge of the exercise means he will take, let me try and expand that for you, he will take credit for its success but will equally be blamed for any mishaps denting his presidential bid. You have the story on page 4 and 5 of the People Daily here. And we can see an insert here. UDA aspirants and their supporters in Embu County set ablaze ballot materials protesting alleged pre-rigging yesterday ahead of the party's primaries. And as I've mentioned, William Moige will tell us more on what is happening, especially on these pre-rigging allegations that were happening yesterday and why people were blowing their gaskets and, of course, burning up some of the materials, ballot materials on the ground as well. So make sure you tune in at the top of the hour as well to just also follow that particular development. Changes of fortunes see Kionjuri make Laikipia stab. From a potential running mate to Uhuru's heir, a former CS is now seeking an MP seat. And you don't need a degree to seek constituency seat. That was a ruling from the courts yesterday, and you can follow the details inside also the People Daily this morning. Kenyans ushering in Easter like no other. And this is the reality on the ground right now. You can see this is at the coast. Fuel crisis, fuel shortage continues to bite, hampering travel out of town. With uncertainty over the price review, many Kenyans will be forced to spend more to move around during the holiday period. And cost of living, prices of commodities have hit the roof, clamping down on spending during the period. Cost of living is so high, very few will be spending on cheer and gifts, rendering the period a mostly indoors affair and on politics. With nominations taking part in most corners of the country, the uncertainty that comes with such a charged political season will restrict movement. Many Kenyans will also take part in the exercise. We want to buckle down to a discussion this morning and still following what is happening with the fuel crisis in the country. It's at high time that now we may look at one particular corporation that was meant to be a buffer and to, of course, help Kenyans during crises like this that we're in, that we've been subjected to this prolonged fuel shortage. And we know the prolonged fuel crisis has exposed gaps in the country's supply chain that needs to be addressed urgently. As I've mentioned earlier before, the blame game between marketers and the government aside, it's clear that the country deserves a strong public strategic petroleum reserve backed by an efficient distribution system to cushion consumers from inconveniences experienced over the past 2 or so weeks. The state must urgently go back to the drawing board and review the role of the National Oil Corporation of Kenya, NOC, as a long-term solution to this madness. The formation of NOC was triggered by the oil crisis of the 1970s and the consequent supply disruptions and historic price increases. Those made petroleum products account for a third of the import bill, making the commodity the single largest item responsible for the drain on the country's foreign exchange earnings. Technically, NOC became a special instrument for the government to have greater control of the petroleum sector, which is key to the country's economic performance. The state will turn to it to stabilize supplies and prices and primarily to reduce the impact of disruptions in petroleum product supply. Regrettably, decades of mismanagement, fraud and underfunding have reduced NOC to a shell. It cannot discharge its mandate, leaving the industry and consumers at the mercy of private players with selfish interests and intentions. Yet, with a properly functioning state-run strategic reserve, consumers will have been spared the inconveniences. The state must pick lessons from this crisis and regenerate NOC as a dependable fallback plan whenever there are disruptions in the market. Although Kenya is a liberal economy, there must be safety nets to tackle rogue market players. Revival of NOC is in the interest of the public, and the state must do all within its means to restore this critical agency. The state should also continue expanding the storage capacity. That could be beneficial in that the country will have sufficient stocks at all times and also cushion itself from the shocks of volatile global prices of the essential commodity. So we are holding court this morning. Introduced to you Professor Gituro Wanaina, who is, of course, a lecturer at the School of Business, University of Nairobi. We have also with us Munyasi Sakwa, who is a member of parliament, also a consummate economist. We do have with us as well Bilo Kero, who is a businessman, and former Senator Mandera, also the chair of the Finance Committee in the Senate. Good morning, gentlemen, once again. Thank you. Right, let's just go back to it. Looking at the dailies, first of all, we have the Daily Nation with the Ruby's boss deported. We have also Standard saying, yes, we should be bracing for fuel price shocker today. And we have information really coming to hand telling us that this could actually be spiked by over 40 shillings. So we'll be buying the fuel at 178 shillings. Today, if there is no subsidy that is really coming from the government. But we've been talking a good game about fuel prices below, and Sakwa and also Professor Gituro on this show. And I think this is a critical moment. As I've said, we try and relook where is the problem really coming from. Should we liberalize the market? And if we go that way, what will be the implications at the end of the day? But should we brace for 40 shillings up today? Let's begin with the Gituro Wanaina.
Thank you, Diba, and my colleagues here. I'm not quite sure. I think we need to unpack here in the sense that at the prices we are paying now, the stock before the price now, it's almost $137 per barrel. As we talk, the price of oil. Is that the price in terms of what we have in stock? I tend to think no. Probably something had brought earlier on. And therefore, looking at the oil marketers for oil, probably going 40 shillings would be really a kill. And probably, that's why they are holding it. To have this opportunity when the price is increased today. I think it will be increased, but I don't think it's at 40. I think that will be on the higher side. Probably see perhaps raising to about 100 and almost it's 130 something there, maybe go to 140 or something like that.
So it's been vacillating between 15 and 40?
Yes, I don't see it going up to 140. No, that would be on the higher side. And it's a kill, you know, because everything, it has a spiral effect. And the bottom line, you are using the matatus. What does it translate to bill here being charged more? I think it's a very deliberate. We have seen riots, and people have died in Peru because of fuel prices. And that's something we should guard as much as possible as a government. I think there is a game here the marketers are playing. I don't think that we have scarcity of oil. That's my gut feeling tells we don't have. But I think they are leveraging, or they are hoping that if the prices go up, it goes back to what you used to have when the budget time.
Right.
People hold beer. The price go up, they sell, they hold beer with the new prices. So that's my take, Diba, this morning.
It goes out, and of course they are slapped with the syntax every time.
Yes.
Okay, let's just come to Bunyasi on this as well. You think, first of all, the deportation of the CEO of Rubis was the wisest fashion to actually, you know, carry out this particular function?
No, I think that is a low point. I think we have a rule of law. The laws don't exclude foreigners from being prosecuted in our courts. I think that if his actions or the company's actions bordered on or actually economic sabotage, he ought to have gone through the legal processes, including our judicial process. Deportations are intended to hide information, because the evidence you might seek to adduce or what he might seek to adduce to defend himself might touch on aspects that perhaps the government does not want the dictators the public domain. We have seen deportations before around security-related interventions, and the question there is, if you allow it to go to court, there's too much may come up and so on, let the person be sent. But there was no need to send this gentleman out of the country. He ought to have gone, if it's actually, it's a crime. Economic sabotage is a crime. He could have been accused and brought through the judicial process, and he may not be the only one. He may name collaborators who may be fellow colleagues and so on, or others in our setup. Secondly, each time there's been a crisis of this kind, people think about the limitations of liberalization. But you know, liberalization does not mean there's not a regulatory framework. There's still a regulatory framework. In a liberalized system, what you do not have is probably price control. You can do price control through the subsidy programs that they are doing also to manage the price. Difficult, it's expensive, they can be cheated, but you do not have to gazette a fixed price, because you might have to be changing continuously. You can have a formula around which it may change and so on, a band. That can be done. So, but I said earlier, I think it was a couple of weeks ago, that one of the problems we have got in our oil distribution, the structure of the market. A few large operators, usually well-connected operators, internationally, locally, multinationals or otherwise, and small operators struggling on the margin, and getting the allocations they need sometimes has been tricky. This is not new. This we have heard, I can remember from first-hand experience as a young economist in this country. It's a problem we had right from the 70s. I think that people have variously re-engineered this in ways that have given huge economic rents, huge returns to who has reorganized or how it's reorganized. At one time, the multinationals were the kings in this, but I think now we are replacing those with alternative kings in our system. When you say these, people tend to think of an individual or one person. It's a weakness in the system that people take advantage of. And even in basic economic dealings, arbitrage is a very common thing. If you find there is a way in which you can make a killing by moving something from one point to another, by holding back for a while and then taking advantage of that over the time change, people will do that. And it's not rocket science. It's just, I think, just how we manage it. In the conclusion, I think the deportation of this gentleman is a serious mistake. It denies us an opportunity to understand what's going on in the market, and that this person should be brought before court. And I can assure you, if they owe them any money, they can't refuse to pay him. these Europeans are well protected in various international settlement arrangements. They will end up paying it. They can't refuse to pay it.
They can't refuse.
Yeah, we may end up spending a lot more than if
But critically, it
was open.
Yes, it brings also the question of if Rubis is exporting this oil, then what stockpiles are they really holding? That if they actually just turn the tap the other way, you set the country in a crisis. Then we should actually look at the quotas that the government is allocating to Rubis at the end of the day. Is it the quotas that should say is morally acceptable at the end of the day? Because if there is, you can actually be given that quota and we've set the country into a crisis, then that should be questionable.
Let me, I must confess I was in petroleum until 2018. So I was an importer. So I know a bit about what's going on. We are not in a liberalized economy as regards fuel. Fuel is not liberalized in this country as we speak now. The import of fuel is managed by the Ministry of Energy, which determines, based on our consumption pattern, how much fuel we require in a particular month, and conducts the import through an open tender system, which it manages 100%. So the second point is that the pricing of fuel at the pumps is set by the government. So it's not liberalized. That's one. And we pushed for this about 10 years ago. We insisted that no, fuel prices were becoming unpredictable, and so we wanted it to be, and so we took that option. Now, what is happening today, clearly, it's not the fault of with all due respect, it's not really about the petroleum companies. It's about government. And this I'll explain very simply. You control the price. So you say, I don't want the price to be more. The price is set at 134 shillings for petrol. Now, the cost of the fuel itself, it's more. It's about 150 something to 160 almost, because of the international price and because of the many, up to 9 different types of levies and taxes that the government has on petrol. So the cost is actually about 160. So the government tells the petroleum companies, we will pay the balance as a subsidy. That subsidy has not been forthcoming since December. You've seen the government paid last week some 8 billion. I understand yesterday, Treasury agreed to pay again a substantial amount today. And that's where the issue is. So what's happening is, every month, 2 months in advance, the ministry conducts the tenders for the coming months. So then when it's doing this tender, now you indicate, based on your allocation, because even the amount you import is allocated to you by the ministry. I cannot wake up and bring a whole ship of fuel in this country. No, it's the ministry that determines how much, based on your market share and based on the storage and pipeline facilities we have and so forth. So you're allocated a certain amount. Now, that amount is is broken up into two. One is for local, one is for export. So when the government reneged on paying the subsidies or delayed in paying the subsidies, what petroleum companies have done is they have consigned most of their fuel for export. And this is not something they do after the product comes. It's something they do when they are placing their orders, before the tenders are done. So even as the tenders were being done, and the ministry follows the OTS, the ministry knows that out of 200 million liters of fuel, petrol that is coming, so much is going to export and so much is for local. So it's not something they wake up and realize that somebody has just, And by the way, let me tell you also this, it's very important, Diban. Every liter that a trader owns of fuel, from the time it's discharged at Kipevu, KPC terminal, and all through the pipeline, it's not to the government. Because twice a day, Kenya Pipeline sends advisories to all the traders and everybody in the sector, KRA, Kenya, the Ministry of Energy. So everyone knows twice a day how many liters Rubis has at the depots in Mombasa, at the depots in Nakuru, in Nairobi, Eldoret, and everything. And number two, you cannot get one truck of fuel, even if it's for export, out of a depot without the approval of KRA, whether it's for export or for local, because they have to verify that. So everything is at the button. They will stop and say, okay, your truck can't go through their simple system. They can control it. So it's not something that the government does not know what's going on. Government is helpless because they have to pay me my subsidy, because my cost was 100 and I'm a businessman. My cost was 160.
Yes.
You're unable to pay. You told me I'll pay the difference, and you're not able to give me the difference. So why should I absorb you're lost for the next 3, 4, 5 months. So what people are saying is then I'll take my product out to another destination where I can get my money. So this has been the issue. So the solution is not really in this. Uganda is not liberalized. That's why their prices in those countries is equivalent of Kenya shillings 160. It's gone above 160 and so forth. But let me tell you, our government is being smart. They're trying to tell you, give me the money, the tax. You put up to 50% of the money on that fuel is tax. They're supposed to give you back the subsidy. They don't want to give back. Like every other refund, even VAT refunds, any money that goes into KRA of the government, to get it back is not that easy. So the best solution for this thing is government simply needs to, instead of struggling to pay because you have debts, once the money goes into treasury, you can't get it back. The best thing is just to remove some of those subsidies, some of those levies and taxes. And it's an easy thing for the government. And that they can't do because they put themselves into a catch-22 because of the IMF conditions. You cannot eliminate some of those things. So I think the only option, like you said, is for them to adjust the prices up. And that they're going to do, maybe 15, maybe 20 shillings or 40, it might, I don't know. But they seem, and the minister alluded to that in Parliament. He said we cannot sustain 10 billion subsidy every month. He said so when he was reading the budget.
It's unsustainable right now because it's a hand-to-mouth economy that
he can't sustain it. So,
but I think it's very important, as you say yourself. You have to balance here, Bill, and I hear you, and I think you bring it very well articulately. You have to balance the consequences. What are the consequences with this behavior, the way it's behaving?
Yeah.
And therefore the government has to be extremely careful because, as I pointed out, people have already been killed in Peru because of petrol, oil. So I think as a government, and you're right, you can't, it's like KRA, they owe you money, but they'll take ages to pay you. So you're also cautious. And I think Irongo Macharia, the CEO of NOC, was saying, we have all this. He has so much million kind of cubic of oil. Rock. So I think perhaps it's basically what Bill is bringing here. But I think as a government has to think of the consequences if this escalates to how
on the economy particularly.
Exactly.
On the economy.
Exactly.
Everything is driven by energy.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but maybe I will come to you, Bunyasi, and ask you. So the government says this is economic sabotage. On the other hand, you're not really paying the subsidy. You want to, of course, survive as a businessman at the end of the day. So if I go to another country and export my oil, how is that now, dubbed economic sabotage? Because if at all you had given me my subsidy and we're operational at the end of the day, then I would really have the option of really going out. So as you say, this particular deportation is unwarranted. Yeah, is unwarranted, and I think the government was just quick off the mark to react, to just show Kenyans that yes, we are doing something. But if you try and flip where the development of this is happening, as you say, Bilo, is they're in catch-22. What do we do? And this has been persistent since January.
I think just two quick comments. I think that here in this instance, the government is using the bully pulpit. Exactly, you can say it. But the truth of the matter is that a commercial manager in the private sector...
Could you hold on your thoughts, because we need to just take that particular short break, and then I will circle back with your thoughts. Just hold on to it, and of course also remember